He was like a little kid. He's like, Mom, can I have some candy? Hey y'all, it's your girl Esneo here, and we're gonna be playing Tempo is the Admonitory Rhyme. This is a mystery horror visual novel. This key was given to me by the creator, and it just seems up our alley on this page, so we're gonna go ahead and play it. It's giving me like strong Flowers of Evil type of vibe with the black and the white and the evil eye. And like this menu is like really clean. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I've just been asked, who are you? And I found myself at a loss for words. It's hard to explain. It'd be best to explain how I was born. My birth was only the unplanned consequence of unfortunate events. It was an accident. That's the case for lots of people, you might say, but let me tell you, my case is something else. I'm special. I'm at a hospital right now, and my roommate doesn't seem to appreciate my company, so it looks like a good time to tell you the story. Tempo is the admonitory rhyme. Is that the hospital door? I like the text. Meet the maker. It's all animated? I didn't know the program Rempre was able to do all this. This being is the cause of my current state of existence. And what is it exactly? It's kind of cute. To explain how I was born, I'll have to tell you about him first. A bit like someone would tell you about how their parents met. I guess it's about the birds and the bees. The comparison fits somewhat. He lived in the forest of a mountain. He thought of that mountain as his territory and his home. Yet one day that beloved land he used to know so well suddenly became a labyrinth. Whatever brought this change, he couldn't remember. In fact, he couldn't remember a lot of things. Some elements of this story were essential to his recollecting process. That's where you should come into play. Try and guess what these elements are. Is he telling this story to the roommate? When you think you've found one, click on it. A notification at the top left of the screen will let you know if you found something. I'll give you some clues to help you find these memory pieces. Here's the first one. That doesn't help. There's that look again. You can click the magnify glass button to read the last clue at any time. Despite a very clear and strong sense of self, he couldn't remember anything about himself. Oh, I thought we were able to start clicking around. His oldest memory was that of a fairly recent event. His very first encounter with a swarm of tiny problems. A weird sort of creepy birds. You know, because he's not a creepy bird himself. One day, while trying to get as far away as possible from the screams of those birds, that tree, it just doesn't look like the other trees. Looks cursed. He happened once again upon that place where his few memories started from. When people get pushed from the nest. It started with an unpleasant awakening. Pain was all he could feel until there was something else, shrill, unidentified screeches. Then he managed to open up his eyes. A group of oddly shaped birds were violently pecking him, pulling at his feathers and drawing blood. Their strength and violence went beyond those of any normal bird of that size. They look like Pokemon, but fear not. It took him a while to come to, and it took him even longer to act, as he was feeling impossibly tired and deprived of strength. Pervaded by a deep pain he couldn't really identify. He collected his strength and dragged himself across the terrain until he could rest his weight on a tree, and then, with mighty anger, he screamed. A scream so terrifying you wouldn't believe him capable of it. The birds, surprised, swarmed back and just stared for a moment, flying in place. Then, as if satisfied, they flew away. He looked like he had hair, but maybe just his head, his feathers. At that, they left for a while, but only for a while. That might be where they live. They kept coming back with increasing frequency. The forest, once his safe home, became more and more unusual, cold and other. Unnaturally still. Although he couldn't remember, he knew something had drastically changed. Since then, those birds kept tormenting him, and that day they decided to play an especially nasty prank. Not far from the place of their first meeting, when he was standing near the cliff, the whole group violently charged him, pushing him off the cliff and making him fall. But we're still here, so obviously you lived, I guess. It looks like you missed something. Would you like to go back to the start of this chapter? What? Are we supposed to be looking for a memory piece? Alright, let's try again. There he is. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we're just gonna... Well done. So we have to find something like that each time. One for sorrow. Where are we coming from? Because... Girl, you don't hear that? Get it, please. Oh. Philly. Herman. I'll have to call him back. Are we Herman? Is that his name? Felice. You have to come this time. They've asked about you specifically. I mean, there has to be a limit to how much you can refuse to do everything. Nice house. Maybe another time. It's been rough lately. Living here takes effort. Then come back already. Why did you move there? What's the point if you basically have to stop living? Don't make me answer that one. I hate it. I hate it. If anything happens, you won't even call the police. I'll bet you wouldn't even call an ambulance not to risk getting the house reported. Felice. Sorry, I went full nag mode. Yeah, I expect you to be somewhat understanding. I try. Honestly, it's not really the fact that you live there that gets to me. You went through some... I don't know how long it's been, but I think we can say shit now. You went through some shit these last years. I think there's a lot I don't know about, and that makes me worry. I can only try and guess what's going on. I don't know what I can do to help. The fact you live on the mountain just adds to this situation. You might be the only one I've been honest with. You know about Valera. You know about my mother. I know you're worried. I mean, looking back on how I've been acting, I see why. But it's okay now. I just couldn't deal with a problem that now has been long since solved. I'm grateful to you and Jen, and I feel sorry for worrying you, but it's fine now. Everything's fine. Totally sounds not fine. Oh, I thought their name was Felice. You know what? We're gonna still call you that. I believe you. Remember, I'm on your side. And sometimes you don't deserve it. I know. We look such a mess. I also know how you think this sort of social BS is exactly what I need right now. Extroverts. It is. Huh? I'm not feeling very sociable, like ever. I actually need to go to sleep. I get you. So, this is kind of unrelated, but I've been meaning to ask you for a while. How about I come over? With Jen? Like a drink or a person? Everyone's name is a bit different. Jenny, Generva? That's what we'll call her, even if I'm saying it wrong. So Jen is a person. I can't believe he accepted after all this time. I can't believe you even asked him after what happened last summer. He's better now. His shirt. You sure he's okay with it? Of course he is. I bet Herman said no, but they're just gonna show up. What about Francie? Don't nobody want him there. What about me? Francis. Hey, how long have you been there? He invited 2 people, not 3. Get a babysitter. Oh, you know what? I'm supposed to be clicking on stuff. Oops. I don't know if I had to do that throughout the entire story. A rough time. Should have just told him to fuck off. Should have done that months ago. I don't want to get them involved, but I keep delaying it. I think it's alright to see them one last time. And then all the things happen. Every single thing. Fabric fable. Can't see what's so upsetting about it. Avoid in her place. Okay, so I gotta click on something unsettling. Can't see what's so unsettling. Okay. I said upsetting. Avoid in her place. So hole. I know what you're thinking. He's got wings, right? There's no way he could have fallen. Whatever story you are telling about what would explain your story, but it's also like how your parents met, but it's not your parents, is very confusing. Yet he fell, this creature. The cliff was high, but not high enough for him to have time to recover and take flight. It was high enough to hurt. However, the blow to his pride was harsher than the one to his bones. Somehow he ended up somewhere else entirely, a place he couldn't remember ever visiting. An unknown house, an unknown lady, and a weird feeling of familiarity greeted him. He tried to keep quiet, wondering if his disgraceful fall had been witnessed, because of course it did. It just didn't get put on the internet. He observed the human walk towards the house and thought of how strange it was. Someone had apparently settled into the forest without him noticing. Or had he just forgotten? This is a very bizarre forest. The lady seemed to spot him at some point. She kept her head turned towards his direction. The dubious exchange of looks on for a short while, and he didn't move, unsure she could even be able to see at all. So we're supposed to, one of the clues is the void and something about unsettling. So I'm gonna click her face. Okay, how about the hand? She proved to be able to see just fine when she invited him to come closer with a simple gesture. Okay, it's not her hand. After some uncertainty, he walked to the house and followed the lady inside. See, I interchanged between the spacebar and the mouse click, but I need to just use the mouse so I can click on stuff. Every feature of that house felt somewhat unreal and weird, but familiar, just like the lady herself. She looks like no one you've ever seen, sir, but okay. The kitchen was immediately to the left. Something about a void. There she was. Between slow and swaying steps, she invited him with gestures to take a seat, meaning to offer him something to eat. Whatever he ate. Her movements were slow, calm, and she seemed used to the situation. She's a murderer. There was strange considering Oh, that was strange, considering how desolated the forest was. He would know. Nice art. The plate and pots appeared to be all empty, but that was no matter. Because at that point, the curious guest wasn't interested in food. He was just really thirsty. While debating whether to say something or not, she seemed to have just read his mind. Without a moment's delay, she turned to grab a bottle of water and a glass. That is a weird bottle. How could she know? She must have thought water is still better than an empty, unless she's trying to drug you, plate. Magic? As soon as the water fell into the glass, a huge mass of water crashed onto the table and swept both of them away. It came down with such force and speed that he was unable to react in any way. I like that it's like, I used to use Rempre way back in the day, and you would have to like overlay a bunch of different images, but I don't know if they've upgraded to like having like GIFs where they're like animated. But yeah, it's a nice touch. He opened his eyes, waking up on the floor of what must have been a different part of the house. It's a big house. No water in sight, his clothes dry. Either that sudden flood had been a dream, or he'd been unconscious for too long a while, he thought. We're kind of like this adorable, weird, uh, black swan type creature. There was a room to his left, completely dark inside. Nothing came into sight, even barely. Bro, this is the afterlife. It couldn't have been a room of a void, could it? Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so something about unsettling, right? As he tried to peek inside, the door instantly closed. Damn. Almost hitting his very long nose. On the opposite side, there was another room that suddenly drew his attention as he noticed the lady sitting on a chair, all creepily. The scene was entirely too familiar, but no matter how much he tried to get to the bottom of this feeling, it was useless. He couldn't remember. With no clear intent, he entered the room, and lost in thought, he approached the lady. He was like a little kid. He's like, "Mom, can I have some candy?" Then, as if the almost natural gesture in the world. Then, oh. She gently grabbed his hand, and he, usually timid, couldn't find any complaint in his heart, rather the opposite. Who are you? The lady didn't seem to hear. She could see, but she can't hear. Before any doubt could stop him, he went for one of the handkerchiefs covering her face and pulled it away. Rude. Rude, sir. She had that covered up for a reason. With much surprise, he found another handkerchief, covering her face in the same spot. She's cursed? He tried again and again, and there was always a handkerchief under the previous one. To all this, she showed no reaction at all. It's to prevent little little nuisances. Who are you? He asked again, sounding a little restless this time. Then a grating sound of screaming birds got louder and louder. He couldn't tell where it was coming from. She's the mother hen or something. As if in response to that sound, the lady got up. Tenpo. Be fearless. Strong, heartfelt words with horrifying depictions. Tenpo. I like that it's on his neck. He just stood there for a bit, as if frozen. He grabbed all the handkerchiefs he could grab, and as he pulled them off, the lady disappeared. He couldn't find out who she was or what she was, but it was at that moment that he realized. She knew me. My name is Tenpo. Oh, was I supposed to click on something unsettled? Tenpo is my name. We didn't know that was our name? Had I really forgotten? It's always about an amnesiac. Apparently it wasn't something he had any reason to think about lately. His own name. Because if you don't have company and stuff, nobody's calling you by your name and you wouldn't call yourself by your name. Okay, let's try and click on something. The birds kept screaming and the room seemed to slowly change. Something unsettling. I don't know, her bed? He couldn't tell for sure what was happening to the house, but he sure didn't like it. He had to leave. Gotta click on something else. Her chair? He realized he was upstairs. He ran down the stairs and looked for the front door. However, a new view of the kitchen stopped him in his tracks. It was different from before. It looked as if it had been left in a hurry somehow. Only a dirty plate on the table, chairs out of place, cupboards left open. Something about this view was especially... What? Desolating. Sorry. I almost want to say de-isolating, but... As Tenpo dwelled on this ugly feeling, the birds doubled their screaming. Screams so terrifying he had never heard. Stay your ass outside. He looked outside from the kitchen's window. Surely enough, the detestable birds were right outside, complaining about who knows what. He wanted to leave, but definitely couldn't if they didn't leave first. Then unexpectedly something nice happened while he was looking out the window. A gust of wind did away with all the birds, and seemingly they finally decided to give up their hunting. Hunting? Tenpo was beaming. He was finally able to leave. Now or never, he thought. However, the door wouldn't open. Okay, go back. Can't see what's so unsettling about it, and that was... What did we click on? The void. A void in her place. I thought that's what the door was. Okay, we're just gonna be clicking on stuff this time. Okay. The void in her place was not that, so I'm gonna click on other things. I'm gonna click on me. Who's that? Okay. Bandanas. More bandanas. Clicking, clicking. The void in her place, man. Click on her. Click on us. Click on handkerchiefs. Click on handkerchief. It wasn't the answer the first time. Void in her place. Okay. It's gotta be something in the kitchen. Maybe it's the birds. The gust of wind. Jeez. What happens if you don't find everything? I don't know what else it could have been. What was it? Okay, we clicked on the glass and the bottle. I don't know. We're just gonna go ahead because I don't want to keep going back. I feel like it's related to what ending you get. Dang. Let's keep going then. The charming one. I don't know how long this one is. Not charming at all, you say? That one opinion it hurts to think about. Okay. Tenpo tried opening the door again. It wouldn't budge. Could somebody have locked it while he was upstairs? Was that somebody in the house? He just stood there for a moment, feeling frustrated, but not quite worried yet. We should have grabbed a knife from the kitchen, but... Alas, following reason, he decided to go back and explore the rest of the house, but... Apparently, the entrance to the living room had disappeared. You know, because nothing else is weird about this place. As if it had never been there to begin with. There was just a wall. Swiftly, he tried going back to the kitchen. Oh. But a wall was in place of that entrance as well. What? He's just stuck in the foyer? Now that looked like something to worry about. He wasn't one to panic, but he had very little patience when things didn't go his way. A raspy scream of frustration escaped him. There was a glass right above the front door that let some light into the small room. With a jump and a couple of flaps of his wings, Tenpo gave a quick look outside. Fuck that. Jason. There was a man, or something, that looked like one standing near the door. This looks like 2X eyes. Tenpo was frightened for a moment, but quickly recovered. Keep that shit locked. He banged on the door. Why? Fist clenched. The man outside noticed the commotion. He listened on, trying to understand what was happening on the other side of the door. Then a very angry command came his way. Open the door. What? Are you talking to me? Open the door. Are you locked in? Well, in that case, I can try. Alright then. The non-aggressive, almost friendly response Tenpo received was far from expected. Actual attempts were made. Tenpo could tell the door was being forced from the other side. I can't. It's either locked or stuck or something. I don't think it can be opened from outside without a key in any case. He screamed, "Do you really have to use this door? Is it your only way out?" "Yes." "Wait, here's an idea." Tenpo didn't even have the time to notice the man outside had suddenly disappeared. There are a lot of creatures out in this forest. That a black hole had already opened up on the floor, and the man was standing there right behind him. Okay, now we're both locked. He was taller than expected and looked absolutely inhuman. You know, because Tenpo is human. But he isn't. Why don't you try this too? Look. Well, I obviously can't do that. The man descended and emerged from that same black hole to show his point. Come on, try. The tall man took Tenpo's hand, and they both walked over the black hole on the floor. There seemed to be no threat in this man's ways, despite his appearance. Tenpo was stuck in uncertainty, yet did not oppose resistance, more so because he had no choice and wanted to get the hell out of there. Really cool. The man descended down the hole as he'd done before. Tenpo, however, remained in the exact same spot. So the man immediately returned, taken aback. Although it was hard to tell, they tried again and failed. And kept failing for a while. I have no idea what's wrong. I think it's just you. It doesn't work with you. I guess I'll have to live with this shameful limitation. That's not what I wanted to do. Right. I just need the door to simply open. You'd think that opening a door would be easier than opening a magical hole into the ground. The man seemed to just stare at the door for a moment, while Tenpo eyed him. Wait, let me check something. The man descended again and disappeared for a number of seconds, then he returned. I don't understand. I can't access those other rooms at all. I can see them from outside, but it's like they're not really there. This is a witch house. Yet I can still enter this room. My guess is you need a key. There has to be a key somewhere. Are we supposed to be clicking on something? There's a key right there. Although it's weird how it doesn't budge at all. Maybe it's stuck and we just need a strong enough pull. Ha, stronger than mine? That's hardly possible. We are a snarky kid. If that's the case, why did you ask me to try it all? Tenpo attempted to open the door again, and the man tried to help him by adding his strength and pulling together with him. They failed once again. Ow. Could have gone without your elbow in my gut. Tenpo just stood there and stared at the man for a while. What? Who are you anyway? You know, the question I should have asked the first time? I'm Manhole. That could explain why we have a grate for a face. Manhole, had I not known about your preferred traveling method, I would have found that name pretty funny. It still is pretty funny. And what's yours? Tenpo. Pleased to meet you, Tenpo. It's not a common name here. Tenpo himself wasn't sure why he felt the need to say that. Oh, I see, because Manhole is a common name. Good one. I accidentally said something witty. I don't get it. So I assume you live here on the mountains? Don't you as well? Not exactly. As you already saw, I'm from downwards. I just come upwards sometimes. Downwards as from down the mountain? Aren't there villages and towns and, like, people? He doesn't look like he'd go unnoticed among humans. What does this mean? He doesn't look like he'd go... Okay. Am I supposed to click something here? He'd definitely stand out. So... Can it tell me how you ended up stuck here? Why can't you just say... Explain the situation? I was trying to escape a group of man birds. Oh, mad birds. I found myself near this house and decided to hide here for a while. Are you talking about a bunch of eye-shaped birds who've been roaming the forest as of late? Yes, I am. I ate them so much. Oh, I hate them so much. I've been trying to get rid of them, in fact. Without success, I suppose. I thought I was the only one who took notice of them. They're definitely a problem. They're aggressive, disruptive, and the forest has turned desolate since they arrived. Haven't you noticed? Tenpo didn't respond. The forest was desolate. The forest was different. Could those birds really be the reason? Anyway, what happened then? I met a woman, but she seemed to have vanished just like the way to the other rooms. You think she's behind these weird house hijinks? Witches living in the forest are common in folktales, I mean. After all, Manhole seemed to be joking, but Tenpo wasn't in the mood. She's not, I'm sure of that. A witch? He looked worried for a moment. Well, first things first, let's get out of here somehow. I'll go look for help. Then once you're out of here, you know what we should do? We should go find those birds and kill them. They might look like an army, but it's actually a small group. They're tricky to catch, but with your help, we're not going to fail. It's not something I'm looking forward to be honest, but what other choice is there? They're invasive. I just want things to go back to normal. I mean, is it really the birds? I agree. Thanks for the help. Go solve the puzzle yourself. Manhole disappeared and Tenpo briefly observed him through the narrow glass. He seemed to be heading for the forest. Okay. What? Doors. Let me guess, I missed everything. Ungracious guess, all of them. It's an odd metaphor. Redundant, but not without reason. Tenpo was once again able to move around the house. Every door and window leading outside was closed and apparently unbreakable, as he learnt. The desolating view of the kitchen was now gone, and the house had gone back to normal, but the lady was still nowhere to be found. I forget I have to click on things. Oddly, that made him feel somewhat lonely. Maybe I gotta click in here. He'd been looking for the front door key for a while, with no result. Having tried everywhere else, he decided to search the kitchen. While closing one of the cupboards, Tenpo's eyes fell on an old poster on the wall. That looks like something important. It depicted a stylized hand holding a sprouting seed. Haha! Now it's not telling me what it is that I found. Okay. A good product comes from a good seed. Something to do with architecture. Something to do with agriculture. Weird nonetheless. For some reason, Tenpo started to feel unsafe. He didn't feel like taking any chances. Could the birds have been in the house? Without any movement too sudden, he left the kitchen and went for the stairs. Okay, well, he was right about the birds. A bedroom, a bathroom, and that one dark room that he didn't really want to check. It might be the only room you should check. The bedroom felt like the safer option. Yet, once he stepped in, he felt a change. Something up there. The ugly feeling of having just done something wrong. Shut the door. He started hearing the birds again, screams getting closer and closer, but from where, he couldn't tell for sure. Nervous, he pushed against the door to keep it closed, and he felt banging from the other side. The screams got louder, until quite suddenly, it all stopped. Tenpo calmed down and looked out the door through the keyhole. There's a keyhole? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought a peephole. It was fuzzy, but he saw that the door to the other room had been opened. How is it open now? Sir, how did water come from the ceiling and other things? Did they do it? Did they go in there? Did they come out of there? What is there in that room? It's closed again. Suddenly a loud choral screech came from behind him, making him jump out of his skin. The birds were behind him, inside the room somehow. They started swarming aggressively towards Tenpo, and he opened the door to run away. Lock them in there. Jeez. You're supposed to be my friend, dude. It looked like Manhole had just gotten there. But with the birds, his body liquefied, and like a huge wave entered the room. Where have you been all this time, sir? The birds, terrified, had no time to react and were apparently erased away, disappearing completely. For a brief moment, Tenpo wondered if that had been the end of the birds. But maybe this guy only transports things back somewhere else. A clear answer came as soon as Manhole got back in one piece. I didn't get a single one of them. Where the heck did they go? So I managed to access the rest of the house. I can see it was no special accomplishment since you were all here. But hey, I came back just in time. You should have called me. How? Tenpo was still a bit shocked and didn't really process what Manhole was saying. He entered the room again. I'm really sorry, Tenpo. I haven't been able to find any help for the front door, but maybe now that the house works again, the front door will too. By the way, those birds are vicious. As we know, they beat you up earlier. They seem to come after you, especially. What's their deal with you? I'm not sure. Tenpo, what do you know? They've been attacking me constantly ever since I can remember, which is not a very long time. What do you mean? I only remember recent events. I can't remember anything about myself in the past. My My oldest memory is somewhat recent. I remember waking up laying on the ground, cold in pain at the base of a tree. Those birds, or whatever they are, I call them peeps, by the way. They do kind of like the marshmallow. That's a good name. So they woke me up. It felt like they were trying to eat me alive. I felt extremely weak, but somehow I managed to crawl away from them, scream at them, and that seemed to get them to give up. Then I just crashed and slept for who knows how long laying on that tree. As I woke up, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't remember anything besides the encounter with the birds. I figured I would have remembered something sooner or later. That never happened. Now those birds will start chasing me as soon as they find me, more aggressive than before. Here's what I think. They attacked you and you fell from the tree. You hit your head and lost consciousness as well as your memories. I guess they might have been trying to eat you for real while you were unconscious. Good thing you woke up before they managed to really hurt you. Manhole ended up finding a bright side. What a great guy. That might just be it. But we look like a bird as well. What? What is it? Manhole appeared to get closer and bow slightly. Manhole appeared to get closer. Oh, oops. But then Tenpo realized it looked more as if his face was melting off his head. Manhole. His face and the rest of his body swiftly melted into a hole on the floor. Manhole? This feels different from all the shenanigans you usually do. Oops, I forgot to start clicking on stuff. What am I looking at? Okay, first encounters his tragedies missing an act. Now that's a man that's lost composure. Manhole's body literally melted before Tenpo's eyes. He'd shown the ability to melt earlier. It was apparently something he could do, but the way it had happened this time seemed odd. For one thing, the hole left behind this time wasn't closing up. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. He might have even fainted, so he couldn't close it at all. For a while, Tenpo tried calling Manhole through the hole, but then, he fell on the back and wings, and then on his legs, and he kept falling on himself for a bit, somewhat disgracefully. That was the oddest earthquake he had ever experienced, and he didn't like it one bit. Even odder was what he assumed to be its cause. The whole room had shifted. What used to be the floor was now a wall, and the hole was on the wall as well. Furniture seemed to be glued on the walls. That wasn't normal. Nothing really is, but okay. Tenpo thought there must have been a reason for what had just happened. Since when? There hasn't been a reason for nothing so far. You live in a very weird house. He could look through the hole more easily now, but it was useless. It was nothing to be seen. Was he supposed to go through? Might as well. It might get you the hell out of here. He already tried before and it didn't go well. This time he was alone. Not even gravity was on his side. Yet this time he went through. 'Cause what else? He found himself looking down on the trees. He heard the rustling of the wind through foliage. He felt tree bark under his fingers. He finally was outside. He felt some sort of comfort in being able to observe his surroundings from above a tree. Suddenly he wondered what could ever be there, immediately behind himself. How had he gotten there? There was a hole in the tree, but it wasn't completely dark. He could see its boundaries, where it started and where it ended. It was a very much finite space. Logic couldn't explain how the black hole in the house had led him up that tree. That was fine. All it meant to him was he couldn't go back, and he was glad. He came down and looked around. He'd already gone through that place recently. He spotted an area with just one lonely tree. That one very familiar tree. As he went closer, he noticed a dark figure kneeled beside the tree. You could have told me you had figured a way out, you weirdo. Manhole didn't answer. He didn't even turn to look at Tenpo, nor did he react in any way. Did we go back in time or something? Tenpo tried calling him again and resumed walking until he was in front of him, and for a while, Manhole didn't react at all. Then Manhole raised his head, presumably regarding Tenpo without saying a word. Tenpo moved around, but Manhole kept still, ending up staring at empty space. It took him a second of confusion. And then he turned around with a sudden movement. There were the birds, immobile, staring back. The stare down was between Manhole and the birds. It was as if he wasn't even there. Everything was still for a few moments. 1 second, putting my leg down. Tenpo could feel the tension despite not being involved. I'm gonna gobble you up. I should have clicked on this tree. Nothing. Nothing. Then suddenly the birds flew away, leaving the tree all at once, and disappeared, as did Manhole. Are they one and the same? Tenpo found himself alone. Was that real? Boy, is anything real? Maybe it was. For Manhole. Mr. Dimension. Maybe this is an old memory of his. That thought acted as a direct gate to a feeling of entrapment. Are we outside, or are we just inside of Manhole's mind? And with that, the forest around him gradually turned into a black location, seemingly impossible to navigate. That's when Tenpo started to think he probably was still inside the house. He had never made it out in the first place. Something cemented his belief in his mind, but he wasn't aware of what it was. For a while, he just stood there, feeling trapped in the nothingness. No direction looked better than the other, until he saw a little something moving in that nothing. A little sludgy puddle of black. Little fucker. That after a while manifested as one of those birds coming out of the floor. Step on it. Tenpo was ready to defend himself, but apparently there was no need. The bird wasn't aggressive. Maybe they're not aggressive when they're by themselves. It was just looking around, then jumping back and forth, appearing aware of his presence. Maybe when Manhole ate the birds, he did manage to get one, and it messed up his whole system. There had to be some sort of trick at play, he thought, but then realized the bird was trying to lead him somewhere. It just kept jumping toward a specific direction where Tenpo saw another bird, some steps ahead. He expected a group attack to happen, but he would have been able to defend himself if the need came. So he decided to follow them. After a while, he started to wonder whether they were really going somewhere or just going in circles. But then all the birds vanished, turning around a corner. He found himself in what seemed to be a room. He could make out its borders and some of its features more or less. It's cute, but it's evil. One bird appeared in the room. This one was staring at Tenpo, standing still unlike the others. He's just looking at him like, yeah, you little bitch. The structure of that room was not unknown to Tenpo. Why? It felt like a deja vu in a way. Did he really know that room, or was it a trick of his mind? He had a vague feeling of how the room should have been like, but he couldn't really visualize it no matter what. One single object in that room was unmistakably identifiable. Hanging on the wall, there was a picture of Manhole with the birds. They were perched on his shoulders and his arms, and Tenpo figured they had to be getting along to be in that pose. Akin souls from different worlds that one day met. Those words were written on the back. Tenpo wondered what that meant. There appeared to be more behind their past than what Manhole had tried to let on. Everything suddenly changed. The picture changed. The words behind it were gone. The birds now seemed to be dead. What was wrong with that? Nothing, actually. That was exactly what he and Manhole were aiming to accomplish. Yet that new picture didn't sit right with him. Maybe he had to dwell onto these unpleasant feelings. Why were dead birds a problem? They shouldn't have been. In fact, their death should have been the end of a problem. More birds started jumping into the room, attempting no aggression, rather just staring, waiting, or curious about something. I feel like Tenpo is a bird. He's part of the pact, he just forgot. And Manhole, I don't know what his goal is. They were fine, each of them alive and well. So what did this all mean? A new concept captured his mind. He turned to look at the room again, and then again at the picture. Something wasn't right. I'm gonna click on you. Beside the picture itself, no one would ever hang a picture on that wall. Why we know that? Don't know. There is no wall over there. That's enough. Oh, someone said that? Tenpo was suddenly overtaken by a violent shockwave that hurled him away, allowing no more room for conjecture. Was the wall a door? Well, enough. I'm getting rid of every single one of you. I don't need his help. The confrontation between Manhole and the birds seemed to be very harsh this time around. Tenpo could see them through a particular flower-shaped hole. But not for long. Whatever that means. Oh. What that means, I don't know. Manhole seems more otherworldly than we do. We just seem like a personification of a bird. But Manhole does seem like a black hole. What is all a dream? Was it all a dream? Sorry. No, not exactly. Tenpo remembered a lot more than that. He noticed something more than you did. For the better, or maybe for the worse, that's not how things went. Try and start over from the last time you saw magpies on a tree branch. All the way back there? Hiya. Fabric table. Man, I did this already, and I couldn't find the second, whatchamacallit. I know what you're thinking. He's got wings, right? There's no way he could have fallen. Yet he fell. Okay, we read all this. So this time it's just click on shit, right? Woo! Click on your hand. Click on these things. Click on everything. Something about a void and something else. The broom. I know that's one of the answers. Clicked on all this and us. I know I gotta click on the bird too. Okay. So you do kind of have to click this. Get certain things right. So 1 out of 2, but I don't know what else. Okay. Void in her place. The black room is supposed to answer that, but the other one was... What did it say? Can't see what's so upsetting about it. Unsettling. Okay, and avoid. I don't know what it's supposed to be. You would think clicking on the fabrics or her herself. Maybe Tenpo. Okay. Sorry if you're just hearing my mouse, but there's a flower here. Whew. Okay, the stove, the birds, nothing. I remember this not garnishing anything. The door. Looks like you missed something. Look, I don't know what it was. Maybe you have to find one, at least one in each one. Alright, so this is where I'm going to end it. I don't really know how to progress. I don't know what I have to click on. I know like all the little memory cues are very specific. And they were kind of matching up with the clues, but then there was just fewer things to click on. Maybe I just wasn't clicking them with the right text. Maybe the text has to line up with the these. So even if I'm clicking the right image, maybe it's not with the right phrasing or something. I'm not sure. There used to be a branch and like I guess something would tell you if you did it right or not. The branch kept showing up, but it wasn't confirming whether or not I found anything. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I really like the character art. I like that it's in this monotone black and white. This memory fantasy. And then there's like the human world that actually has color and the characters are... The narrative, the way the visual novel is being done is very different from the memory part. This is more like just read up, you know, like a novel. And then the human one is kind of like there's a text box and they're just always talking. Like you're getting information from their conversations rather than an overarching story being told to you. But I like that it's animated in some way. I mean, Renfree has come a long way as a program, so it's nice to see it in action. So horror mystery, visual novel in a movie script format is definitely interesting. There's a few spelling errors, but nothing that can't be fixed with a second read. And like, you know, they gave this to me for free. They didn't say I had to review it, but I don't know. This one's unique and different. Maybe what I couldn't find, you can find. The link will be in the description below if you want to figure it out for yourself. I mean, I'm really curious. I don't really know what this backstory is supposed to explain to us about the current story happening, but maybe it's like an overarching abstract lore about the character and how they feel or something, but it's just too early really to tell. You can tell that this probably has layers, or you probably have to, I don't know. There's just more information to be had, I feel like. And I just can't get to it because I keep messing up. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to progress, let me know. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.